Yeah.
All right. I'm super excited for our next guest. I mean, wow. One of our own captures a gold. I'll think about that for a second. And I want to welcome Justin Best to the program. Justin!
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
Dude, so proud of you, man. That's
Thank you.
fantastic. God, congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it was pretty unbelievable, and just glad to bring it home for everyone. And all those people asking like, "Oh, are you gonna bring home the gold?" I can emphatically say, "Yeah, I brought it home."
How great is that? What? So, take us through the moment of the ceremony, right? Like when you guys were awarded, what was that like for you? Like, take us through it.
Well, I guess millions of people know that I have an ugly crying face now, so that's cool. That's out there. But like the emotions of it was very heavy for me. I had set this goal when I was probably 14 years old, and at that time it was just a wild dream. At that point, winning an Olympic gold in the sport, and just years of progress and failures and ups and downs, and there's doubters along the way, and I personally love this country so much, and so I saw that American flag going up and the national anthem, and all of that came to a head. And I guess the only emotional reaction was to cry. So it was pretty unbelievable and a dream come true.
I love it. I love that you cried. I love that you felt. No, I'm serious. That you felt it deep into your soul. You earned that thing, man. Such hard work and blood and. I mean, show us your hands. I mean, I can only imagine the calluses.
They're healed up. Yeah,
man.
but
I mean,
this is actually pretty light for me.
Right? Like, I mean, think about that. How do you, let me, because we're on the subject, but how do you handle your hands and how they get bit up like that?
Yeah, so it's tough. So when you get back into it, if you haven't been rowing in a while, your hands just get shredded. And they're these open wounds, and so you have to, keep them clean. A couple of like moisturizers help just heal it faster. And then this is the end result, which is the callus. And this is actually it being protected. This
right.
thick pad of skin. But yeah, there's nothing. It's kind of par for the course in the sport, and there's not a lot you can do to avoid it. And it's one of those things where it's like you can wear gloves, but unspoken rule: if you're wearing gloves, you're kind of soft. So that's what we try to avoid. Yeah.
Oh, that's classic. Do you is your mind is it a mind trick where you're not even thinking about your hands?
I mean, there's so much. It's the double-edged sword. So you're in so much pain for the actions you're performing. So your legs are screaming, your lungs are screaming. You don't even notice it. And so there's a photo that I took where I just ripped open a brand new blister during the race. So I was holding my medal and it was literally bleeding. Didn't notice it until I was well past. And I'm like, my hand's kind of stinging. Like, what is, I have a new blister and from that race.
That's wild. Take us through the big race too, because it was so fascinating how New Zealand, I guess the 600-meter mark, and New Zealand's making a push, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the call, red, was made.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in rowing, in our discipline, there's no coxswain. So there's not a guy at the boat steering and yelling at us. So we have to communicate with each other, but also keep our cadence and make sure we can still breathe. And if you're saying hey guys, New Zealand is going to make a move on us, all of a sudden you're running out of breath, so you need those concise words. And it's similar kind of if I akin it to Peyton Manning saying Omaha. Yes. Everyone on the team knows what Omaha means. And you hear that and you're like, okay, this is my next role. And so we kind of assigned red to us means you see red. And now everything that you have in the next stroke is put on that oar. You put over pace on the watts that you put on that oar. And so we saw they were making their move and our stroke seat, took a look over, saw that was happening and said, if we stop them right here, we will win the race. So he made the red call. And that's kind of like you pull out all the stops and you go out of your pace to get seats, is what you call it in rowing. So if you take a seat, you're moving away from the crew behind you, and it worked. Like that was their last punch that they threw, and we responded, and we held the margin all the way through the line.
This is so fascinating. So I love your story too. That you were a football player and you suffered a concussion, and your parents are like, "Nah, man, like we need to do something." And then they were watching The Social Network and the Harvard rowing team, and it came to it. So this is how it was born.
Yeah. I was in middle school, and for whatever reason, I was a left tackle, and we were doing a heavy side pull. And so I come over. I'm looking for my guy. I was supposed to probably do outside linebacker block. And I come over and he's gone. I'm like, what? Where is he? And I don't really remember the next, 30 seconds or whatever. And I'm back in the huddle. And they're like, Best, like, you okay? And I guess their safety had come down for a blitz. And I wasn't anticipating him. And he and I knocked heads. And so the next however many weeks, I was just like, this is horrible. Like, I'm in a room, it's dark, and my head hurts. And I was like, all right, maybe football isn't for me. But I was an active kid. I always wanted to get go outside and expend energy. And I was in between a bunch of different sports. And my parents watched The Social Network. Obviously the Winklevoss twins, with the founding of Facebook, they were prominent rowers, Olympic rowers themselves. And it's actually very funny. I think the butterfly effect of had those guys not done that, had this not been made, and had my parents not watched it, I wouldn't have had an Olympic gold medal. I'm a firm believer in that now. So it was a pretty interesting full circle event.
I mean, it's wild. So did you take to it right away? Tell us about the sport for people that may not know a lot about it. Just how arduous and taxing, and you want to talk about being in incredible shape. Like that is an amazing sport for that. You have to be in the best shape ever.
Right. Yeah. And initially I loved the sport because I traveled outside of my high school bubble, I'll call it, got to meet new people. And then I was also just out on the water, which I thought was pretty cool. And so for a kid with, attention issues, just being able to look around and being like, oh, what's over there? Oh, and it was on this little river in northern Delaware. So we row through Wilmington and go to the Delaware River and turn around. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So in terms of that aspect, I loved it kind of from the get-go. And I was like, I want to do this. But I sucked at first. I was very slow. My brother rowed, and he was in the boat ahead of me relative to the starter level. And I was in the second boat, and I barely made the second boat. And, I was very slow. But kind of what you were asking is the appeal about this sport is the more work you put in, the more direct results you get. And it's very unique in sports as a whole. I will never be as good as LeBron James at basketball. His talent, his innate ability, puts him at a level that I could never attain. And I could train 8 hours a day, and I could get somewhat close, but he will just always be better than me, no matter how much I work. That's not necessarily the case for rowing, I feel like, and that's kind of what was addictive and got me, coming back for more. It was seeing those small progress, week in, week out. And like you said, it is arduous. It's a lot of miles. You're doing the same stroke thousands of times over in a practice to go race the same stroke, roughly 220 times in a race. But again, seeing that progress and working with people to kind of help you along the way, that's just, it was just this great feeling. And pursuing it for the last 13 years and being at the pinnacle of the sport, I'm like, I made a really good decision.
Oh my God. Yeah. From Kennett Square to Paris, the Olympic team. What was it like when you first made the Olympic team? I mean, that alone, I can imagine your parents. Oh my God. What was that embrace like after gold?
Well, so my first Olympic team was in Tokyo, and that was peak COVID. So I was out here in California, and I couldn't see my parents, but I texted my mom and I said, "Your son's going to be an Olympian." And, she immediately called me and, she got all emotional, and I'm like, Mom, you're getting me emotional. So it means a lot to them. But the extra step, and we had a coach, Mike Tatey. This is a famous quote from him: "Your mom will love you, your girlfriend, your wife will love you, your family and friends will love you, but when you win a gold medal, they'll love you just a little bit more." And so,
That's awesome.
I think that's it. It's extra special to share that moment with them. Seeing them on the awards dock and seeing them in the crowd, they're crying and cheering. And it was really special this time having my whole support unit in the stands. And like the stands itself were just electric. So we row, it's not the biggest spectator sport. And so like max capacity will have maybe a couple thousand people on the shore. So the Dad Vale Regatta specifically, that's probably the most packed rowing venue I've been at.
Sure.
This was like 20 times that size. There was thousands of people from like 1,000 meters to the finish line, and like these massive grandstands. You can barely hear anything. That was electric. And knowing my parents and my brother were there, that was just like extra special. And then, my fiance now, and it was just it was like storybook, really, kind of going through all of that. It was just lovely.
And it's so big, like in Europe, like it's a huge deal. It's a huge sport. So I can only imagine like the whole thing, the whole scene that here you are in this situation. My God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Justin, you mentioned that quote where they'll love you a little more. I always wondered if I ever won the Academy Award or like a gold medal, like that night when I go home, like, is it date night? Do you put the medal on date night? Is it an aphrodisiac?
I mean, we went out and celebrated, right? And it was a collective. So I didn't get to spend some like individual time with my fiance. Yeah. She was my girlfriend. I had to make her my fiance later on, but that wasn't until a little later we got to travel to Europe afterwards because it was just a group celebration. Now, as you mentioned, it's a huge training sport, and we do a lot of training all the time. Building the heart, lung capacity, the muscles. Nobody really prepared me for what the liver was about to go through, and so I felt a little underprepared for the following 3 days. And on day 3, I woke up, probably 11 a.m. or maybe 12, and I was like, oh gosh, I feel inadequate in terms of my prep for this.
Hey, you mentioned your fiance, you got engaged on the Today Show?
How'd
that come about, man? How did you orchestrate that?
Yeah. So if you're familiar with Snapchat, the social media company, send each other pictures and they disappear after like 6 or something seconds. They track how many days in a row you Snapchat some person, and they'll show you on the side, like you have your little profile, like how long your streak is. So we get this email a couple months ago saying, hi, you have an indication that you have one of the longest streaks on the platform. We'd love to hear your story. And so I filled out this Google form that they sent over, not really thinking anything of it, but I had mentioned, okay, Olympic rower, and I do plan on proposing to her because she's who I have my streak with. And so the team from Snapchat reached out and they're like, hey, so we would love to kind of assist with you guys. Like, what do you think about 2,738 yellow roses? And I was like, oh my God, yeah. Like, no brainer.
Cool.
Absolutely. And then initially it was supposed to be, I do the proposal, take some pictures, and then they send it into the Today Show. They'll do a little feature on it. And so we had just won our heat, and I get an email from Snapchat saying like, hey, good race, congrats. Don't really think on this, but the Today Show would like to do it live on August 5th. And I was like, okay, well, I got to respond to this because I was already kind of like in my zone, but like this is, pretty important to get that figured out. And so they coordinated with the producers on the Today Show, and they got it set up, and it went off without a hitch. So I hats off to Snapchat and the Today Show to make that pretty special.
Wild.
That's amazing. How long was your streak again?
2,738 days. So just about 7.5 years. Yeah. Every single day.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I couldn't think of, it's just something that we did. It's like how we communicated, and it was important to them, and it's important to us now. And no, it was pretty cool to like go through that and have that happen, immediately for winning following winning a gold medal,
Hey, whose idea was it to use the Kelsey speech?
Okay, that was me, because essentially, there's some chatter out, and in, as I'm sure you guys know, on sports radio, there's pundits. You got guys coming on throwing hot takes around, and you kind of have to deal with that, right? Similar in the rowing world, there's some online forums that people, they'll talk shop. And we had won the second World Cup, which is kind of like a preliminary race leading up to the Olympics. And not everyone, but there were a couple of people out on the forums that were saying, the U.S. peaked too early. New Zealand's going to peak better. The Great Britain's going to be better form. Australia is going to come back. They have an Olympic champion in that boat. So all this chatter starts happening, right? And they're saying, the U.S. can't get it done. And we're all joking, like, they think we're underdogs. We back ourselves, but they do think we're underdogs. And, there's the part in the Jason Kelce speech, and I was physically there for it. So I heard him,
you were
give
at the
this.
parade.
I was at the parade, yeah. And it was pretty electric, obviously. And so there was a point in the speech where he's like going, Jay Ajayi's too small. They say I'm too old. They say Doug Peterson can't get it done. They say Nick Foles a backup quarterback. And so I'm remembering that, and I'm like, this is a copy paste of the speech, but like it's applied to us now. And so we watched it in front of our, before our heat, and all the guys were like, yeah, this is so sick. And so we started ripping on it. We were like, Liam Corrigan does this. Michael Grady's not consistent. Justin Best is too small. They got a high school coach. And we were just ripping on it. And yeah, it was that very much underdog mentality, because there were some people that we thought we could do it, but they didn't think we could do it.
You were just missing the masks.
Yeah. We wanted to row angry, and we sure enough did. And so we get off the dock, and we're going into the mix zone to talk with the press officers and whatnot. And I saw some people from NBC 10 Philly, and I saw a Philly shirt, and I'm like, those are my people. I got to tell them we watched the speech, the Super Bowl speech. He's wearing the Mummers Parade, get up and all. And so there's two guys not from the Philly area in my boat, and they're like, yeah, so it was a good speech, but what was he wearing? And I'm like, it's a Philly thing, I could explain it to you, but it's a whole thing.
we what's cool too is that we have such a tradition in the sport here in Philadelphia,
Yes.
that we go back, and it's a big deal, right?
It is. Yeah, Kelly Drive, named after John Kelly, Olympic medalist, gold medalist himself. And Boathouse Row, it's been formative for myself. I rowed at Drexel. I was there for 4 years, and it's impossible to go out in a Center City, and I am convicted. This is an argument that I hold. It's impossible to go out in Center City, walk into a bar, and not bump into a rower or someone connected with rowing, because it is very much that ingrained into the city, whether you know it or not. And that's something that's really cool. You don't find that in many other cities. I think Boston might be the closest, but it's a different scene. And the club rowing, whether it's Penn AC, Vesper, Union Boat Club, I'm trying to think, University Boat Club, or Undine, or the university scene itself. So Penn, I saw you were wearing a Penn hat. Drexel, Temple, St. Joe's, the rivalries, the stories. It's really cool to come from that. And I always say Philly's the blue collar rowers, we're out there, we're slinging it on Lemon Hill, running hills, kind of bred different, a little, that tough mentality. We will go out in no matter what conditions, and we're going to, do it with a smile. I think being a part of that community and now a part of that legacy is really special for me. And they're going to, I believe this was the plan, is they have kind of a memorial up towards the finish line of the race course, where they put a bunch of Olympic medalist names with Philadelphia ties. So looking forward to having Nick Mead and Justin Best, get on that plaque when they make it.
That's awesome. And, you're born and raised in the area. You were at the parade. You're a 4-for-4 guy.
A 4 guy?
I said, you're a 4-for-4 guy. You are Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, Flyers.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't say that I'm not going to claim that I'm a hockey fan, but I've been to a couple Flyers games in my time. But yeah, Sixers, Eagles, Phillies. I think it's kind of tough that Phillies lost last night against the Braves, but they're still top of the NL East. So I'm looking forward to Red October for sure.
We got to get you to throw out the first pitch.
Yeah.
For Red October.
Well, I think I'm going to be going to a Phillies game September 15th. So keep an eye out. I don't know exactly what the program has, but would love to do that. I think rally, it's just there's so many good stories in Philly sports to rally behind. Whether it was that underdog, the Eagle Super Bowl run, or Phillies Dancing on My Own, love that song, right? And another thing too, I didn't even mention this in my warm up. I was listening to Dreams and Nightmares, Meek Mill. It was. I'm sitting here. I'm surrounded by there's a Romanian guy over to my left, and there's a British guy warming up down the way, and I'm listening to Dreams and Nightmares. I'm you guys don't even know what this song is doing for me right now.
Awesome. Dude, I freaking love you, man. You are the greatest. Oh my God. Hey, I want people to also know how difficult it is. So tell us about your training. Tell us about what it entails, how
diet.
Food intake, because you doing what you do, you burn a lot of calories.
Right. It's a lot of things taken to the extreme. I think it would be kind of a disadvantage if I didn't describe kind of the balance I have to strike. So I work a full-time job in addition to training for a majority of the year. Leading up to the Olympics, I took some leave of absence, but I guess a typical training day would be, 5:30 a.m. wake up, 2 hours of cardio, go to the office, get in the office around 9:30, come back around 5:30 p.m. to my training facility, do the second session. So that could be a mix of weights and cardio, or potentially go out for a second row. And then, bedtime, hopefully 10 p.m. ish. So have to balance that. And part of that is, nutrition and eating clean, high quality foods makes you, I see it not necessarily as something that has taste, but fuel for myself. Right. Where if it doesn't taste the greatest, that's fine. But making sure I'm eating whole, good quality grains and good meats and protein sources, and staying up on hydration and not just drinking water, but also, getting the electrolytes that you need to kind of fuel it. And also I'm not going to lie, I rip coffee a lot. So keep the caffeine going. But we do a lot of cardiovascular based training. Our race is, we ended up doing it in 5 minutes, 49 seconds. So it's not an all out sprint. So you can't be just doing sprints all the time, but it's also not a 10K where you're going for 34 minutes or whatever. So we do a lot of, relatively low zone cardio, and then we do some kind of sprint work. And I'd say all in on a week, we train from 24 to 26 hours of actual training per week. So most weeks is 7 days, where Sunday is kind of a light recovery day where we'll only do 80 minutes of cardio. But other than that, it's 3.5 to 4 hours a day of training per
light
day.
Day is 80. I hate doing 35 minutes of cardio. Your light day is 80 minutes of cardio.
Your lung capacity must be amazing. How you build your lungs up, because it's so much about breath.
It's about breath and also keeping the ticker going along. And one thing that we measure is VO2 max. And so my VO2 max was measured this most recent year was 69 milliliters of air per kilogram of body per minute is what I can produce and take into my body. So I think the best guys in the world, and it's a function of weight too. In terms of, weight, efficiency, we might not, because we're heavier. I'm 195 pounds. Guys in my boat are 220. The only people that kind of have higher ones is cross country skiers, and they're 150 pounds. But in terms of if you remove weight, rowers have some of the highest VO2 max capacities, just because, like you said, we're building those muscles, but also the lung capacity and being efficient with the blood that we're working with, so that we can fuel our body to do the cardio, do the work.
You're amazing, dude. I gotta tell you. You're a blast. So when you come home often, what's your deal?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you come home often? Like, what's your deal? Like,
I try to. I'll be ping ponging back between the coasts this fall. But like I'd say from January. So I said goodbye to my parents around Christmas. And unfortunately, I was able to like see them, at our race in like the preliminary race in Switzerland. But I was on the road for the last 8 months.
wow.
So we were in Colorado Springs for high altitude training. And where that's just fitness. There's no rowing up there. We just sit on the rowing machines for 4 hours a day. So that was intense, but it was worth it. And then we went down to Florida. From Florida, we went up to Princeton. Princeton, we went on over to Italy to do our race up in Switzerland, back to Princeton, back to Italy, and then back to Paris. So it was 8 months of living out of a suitcase. And it was funny. I was texting my fiance and I was like, I'm paying rent for the first time in the place I'm actually going to be living in. This is so exciting for me. So now I'm back in the Bay Area.
Do you get a stipend from the USA? Do they help you out financially?
They give a small stipend, but if you only lived off of the stipend, you'd just be above, the overall U.S. poverty line, which, it covers the living expenses, which is I am grateful for what the USOPC does, and they're kind of fighting an uphill battle, right? I'm not Steph Curry dropping threes, signing millions of dollars with Under Armour. And I fully understand that. And I don't expect to be, in that level. So they have to kind of find a way to distribute funds so that, non-revenue generating sports, you can still get that kind of distribution and able to support. So I'm not in a unique situation. I don't want to feel like it's a woe is me situation because there's a lot of other sports out there, same story, where they have to work a job, and whether that's equestrian or shooting or all these other sports that you don't hear about until the Olympics come on, they're in that same boat, and I feel for them, and I would love it if at some point I could give back to the rowing community and hopefully address some of those issues, and it just requires some time and proper funding, but that's for a different day.
What's next for you?
So, when you cross the finish line and you win an Olympic gold, like I kind of knew, okay, my life was going to change, but I didn't really know the magnitude that until like a couple hours later when I'm getting whisked around and the media appearances and you guys reached out and thank you for I was happy to do that. I wanted to pop on the cause like. I'm there, but the extent at which my life changed, I could not have anticipated. So original plan was, work a full year and then softly make a decision on LA 2028. I think that's still going to be the plan, but just take a year off of international rowing. I got to let my body recover. It wears on you. I slipped 2 discs, like my hands, a whole lot of things. So take a year off, work at my job, work with my firm, and then make a decision for LA a little later. So maybe sometime next year. Want to get married and got to be around to plan for that. Ideally, we get married somewhere out, local relative. We've been looking at a couple of venues, like both my family and her family are based in the area. So we'd love to kind of, we met in high school out in Chester County. So we'd love to kind of
beautiful.
It would be a great full circle. Yeah. So we have we had joke, we have seasons of our lives. And so that was season 1. So it'd be cool if like season 10, us got married in the season 1 location.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you also have a great venue by the art museum that overlooks the Boathouse Row.
We were considering like Center City, in Philadelphia. And then there's also like Longwood Gardens, which is out close to us. I don't know. Beautiful botanical gardens. And then there's a couple of manors, on the main line that have really great wedding venue setups and can accommodate a lot of people. Because what's pretty special, I think, about my relationship with Lainey is like we've built so many friends that are mutual friends along the way. It's going to be tough making the wedding list because there's just so many people we've overlapped with, and both of us have that connection with them.
You are the greatest. I got to tell you, we are so proud of you. You are a special guy. I mean, an amazing talent, but just a great dude. Like, God bless you a million times, brother. I mean,
no, thank you, Anthony.
Seriously.
Yeah, no, this was cool, and like I've listened to 97.5 all the time. You know, when I'm back home, I'll throw it on. I can't say like I'm the biggest.
We're
like,
on YouTube now, Justin.
investment sports fan, but I'm always listening. What?
We're on YouTube. No 97.5 when you come back.
No 97.5. All right. On YouTube, it works.
Doesn't matter, dude. You are beautiful, man. I freaking love you. Hungry dogs row faster.
That's the I mean, brother. Got the dog mask on.
Let's go.
You are the greatest, man. God bless you, buddy. Listen, we'll talk soon. I love you, man. You're amazing.
We all silly like the mayor.